go. 2, 1. So, Darren, hi, welcome to my podcast, HR Hacks and Halos. It's really exciting to have you here. I'm kind of honoured actually because I know you, Darren, so much. I'm never going to do you justice. I'm going to let you kind of introduce yourself, but I recognise you as an entrepreneur. You're a TED Talk speaker. You are an award-winning, comedian. You do so much.
Keep going. It's fine. Just keep going.
I think it's amazing what you do. And of course, I suppose you're also a trainer. You're also a podcaster in your own right as well, aren't you?
I have been known to cast the odd pod. Yes, that is true. Yes.
How do you find time to fit all that in?
Well, I don't do anything else. I don't do any work is the answer, really. I mean, I don't do any work. I have a team of people that do all of the work for me. And we've got one guy here who's meant to be operations manager. As I keep saying, he's my PA. And we've now got someone else who's going to be managing my calendar during October. So I've got 2 PAs, effectively. If I tell them that, they will not like it. But yeah, I do nothing else other than just basically gob off on stage at people.
I like that because you've got a fantastic team around you that kind of does all this stuff to help you out, so that you're really kind of you're kind of just a boss. You're kind of like free of all the shackles of all of the kind of internal stuff that needs to happen. Would you say that's fair?
I would say that is absolutely fair. Yes, we had a website go live last week, and I didn't know who it was.
Wow.
I've never heard of them.
Did you know mine went live?
I knew yours went live, yes. Of course. Of course, yes.
Brilliant. All right. So, Dan, let's get into this. My podcast is all about changing company culture, because there is something like 23.6 billion that's lost in productivity each year. And one of the consequences of that is that workplaces can be a really miserable place to be in. And I don't think that's fair for anybody. If you're going to be working to get the best out of anybody, you have to have you need to have a happy and a healthy work culture. And so that's my calling. It's to help organisations recognise when they have a company culture that isn't necessarily as fruitful as they would like it to be, and to help them turn it around. And the podcast is about kind of highlighting some of those bad boss behaviours, bad employee behaviours, and helping organisations to kind of recognise them and to basically do something else with those behaviours, particularly as I was a HR practitioner, kind of very much cutting the cold face to try and deal with that sort of stuff. So it's amazing to have you here because as a business owner, this is something that I'm sure probably plays very, very deeply into your role as a boss. Perhaps let's start at the beginning. When did you decide to start your own company?
Well, we decided to start our own company back in 2009. At the time, we were working for a digital marketing agency in Manchester, who, funnily enough, didn't have the best approach to employees. They had an in-house HR department, and it was 2 or 3 people, so it was relatively big for an in-house HR department. And they were great. Wouldn't hear a word said about them in HR. It was the sort of top-down ownership of the company that made everybody feel like they were, I'd say, back in school or maybe in playgroup. So they had practices like you weren't allowed to make a brew if it wasn't the official break time of the company, which was like 11 to 11:15. And then 50 people then had to try and use a kettle within a 15-minute period. And it just didn't work. And the one memory I've always got now, the internet went down once. It's a digital marketing agency. You can't really do a lot when the internet's went down. And a guy went to make a drink. He was older than me at the time, so he's still older than me, funnily enough, because that's how age works. But I would have been 30, 32, something like that. So he must have been 35. And he went to make a drink, and then the boss told him, "What are you doing? You can't do that. It's not 11 o'clock." And the boss was 10 years younger than him because he'd been told he had to do this, otherwise the owner of the company would come down on him. And it was just that attitude that this isn't really what you want to be involved in. And we've always made sure that we don't do that here. You know, if we're adults, if you want to stand up, you want to walk around, you want to go and make a drink, you want to go out for a cigarette, then do it, you know. As long as everything's done at the end of the day and clients aren't left wondering what's going on, then treat people like adults and they'll respect you a lot more.
Yeah. So what was the kind of feeling in that environment? Obviously, that individual went off to make a cup of tea, thought it was okay, it wasn't like there was much work going on. What was the kind of atmosphere like?
It was very much like being in school. Like you couldn't get up when you wanted to. You couldn't go to the loo when you wanted to without, you know, getting permission first. It was like, are we in prison? Are we captive here? What? This just isn't pleasant. And I used to work. My first job was at digital game stores. You know, the high street retailer, back in 2000, and that was such a great environment to work in. It was a brilliant environment to work in because we had freedom basically to start and finish when we wanted. Although they said people see you as the web department, you're the games journalist department, the accountants, the financiers, the buyers. If they see you coming in at 10 o'clock, they're going to think, oh, those guys don't do any work. So try not to do that. But we did have the freedom to do that if we wanted to. And, you know, we used to go to game launches and we'd write reviews of video games. It was like brilliant. I thought all jobs were going to be like that. All jobs were going to be this fantastic, this full of freedom with such a great boss. And shockingly, they weren't. So going from that to this was like, oh, what a departure. I don't want to be here. Yeah. And, well, I didn't. So that's why we started our own business.
Yeah. So how long were you there?
Too long. 2.5 years, I think it was.
Wow. That's a long time to have to, you know, work in that kind of very oppressive kind of environment.
It is, yeah, but we moved to a different department within it and then tried to make our own rules within this department, which the owner of the company wasn't happy about. But that's how we wanted to do it because we were then running our own little part of the business. Other people would see us and like, why are they allowed to make a brew at 9:30? Yeah. Why are they allowed to go out for their lunch at 11:45 if they're not able to do that? It's like, well, that's the way we're doing it. It's a happy place. Everybody wants to be here and we get more done.
So you almost created a little bubble within the...
We did create our own. We absolutely did. We absolutely did. And it caused a bit of resentment with the other departments that were run like military schools. But we couldn't do it any other way. There's no way I could manage people the way that they were doing it. It just isn't me.
Yeah. There was so I was working at a utility company a few years ago. I won't give you their name, but I'm sure you'll be able to work it out. Because there was they were working from 8 till 8, and you would have whatever your shift was, you'd go in, switch on, you kind of like press a button to say that you were actually working and you're active, and then they would monitor you and your calls over that period of time, not just what you were saying, but also the length of those calls. So there are some work environments where, and then when you wanted to go for a break, you had to physically say you were going to be switched off, so no calls were then coming into your inbox, your queue. You'd then have to go for your break and then come back. But all of that was being absolutely monitored. So your break times, the number of breaks you went on, how long you were at the loo, your lunch when you were clocking on and off, and it was very prescribed and scheduled to the point that it was very difficult to show any kind of personality or any kind of flex around that working day. It made it very unpleasant place to be, actually. So I do empathise actually for you. However, some organisations have to structure like that, I suppose.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, if you're on a reception or call answering and you're getting inbound calls, you have to check out, otherwise your phone's going to be ringing and you're not going to be there. So understand that. I mean, we've got something similar here. When people do go out for lunch, somebody has to be available to take the phones. They have to know that they're taking the phones. And because we have people working from home, we have to communicate over an online channel to let this person know, right, I'm going for my lunch now, I'm going to be out for an hour. If the phone rings, it's on you to answer it. So you need that. Otherwise, clients are wondering why nobody's answering.
And then suddenly they become non-clients.
Exactly. But the whole concept of, right, the internet's down, no one can do anything. Where are you going making a brew? What are you doing? It's not 11 o'clock. That's going too far.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you. And also, I would argue that things like just taking 5 or 10 minutes out to go to the loo shouldn't be something that HR should get involved in, because absolutely, you clock in on, you're clocking off. You're going to have some time for your lunch, but those times in between, those are physical things that people need to do, and also to take time away from the screens. So, as an HR practitioner, I was always really unhappy with the way that was being managed, because you've got to accept that people are essentially responsible and human, and kind of want to do their job to the best thing that they can do.
Absolutely, yeah. The screen thing's important. You have to take time away from the screens. You have to allow that. So if you're telling people they're not allowed to move between 9 a.m. and 11 a.m., you're not actually allowed to do that, because they need that time away. So, but that comes from somebody setting the rules who doesn't understand HR. They're setting this. This is my authoritarian rule. This is what I'm going to demand everybody does. Well, you can't do that, by the way. I don't know what you're talking about. I'm doing it. So, but I've seen a lot of that over the years.
Yeah. And you're right. Sometimes HR doesn't get involved in that kind of scheduling, because they would actually design it in a very different way to allow those kind of breaks. But sometimes it's the operations guys that take over, and people just have to fit in those gaps, and actually two parts of the one machinery are not talking to one another, in which case you then create an environment which is really unhealthy and really at the end of the day unproductive, as you were saying just now, at that company that you were working at before game. Oh, sorry,
yeah. After game. Yeah, game was my first, and I thought everything would be that good.
If only it should, and that's the way it should be, actually. Talk to me about game then. What was it about game that made you feel happy that?
It's a combination of things, really. It was my first job, so I didn't really know what to expect, but I was treated like I was really good at something, which I liked. We were given freedom, so if you wanted to go for lunch at 12 or at 1, it didn't really matter. If you wanted to start at 8 and finish at 4, you could. If you wanted to start at 10 and finish at 6, you could. But as I said, they advised us not to, because we're walking past accounts and finance, and they'll see us come in at 10 and they don't realize we're still there at 6 when they've gone home. So best if we don't, but you can if you need to. We had freedom to plan our week, essentially. So what games are we looking at? What graphics are we doing? What posters are we doing? What flyers are we doing? What content are we doing for the website? Basically structure it yourself so that everything gets done. And we were like our own individual self-contained department. The guy running it was brilliant. He was inspirational. All the team were really good. We all got on really well. There was a good social aspect to it. And the company as a whole was a really good business as well. So they provide the best Christmas parties that were total spared no expense. They'd have a summer barbecue, which was phenomenal. They'd have like games and bouncy castles, and everything was provided. It was like you were part of a proper organization that cared about you. After that, of course, I went and worked for a place in Cardiff, which was exactly the opposite. Exactly the opposite. Yeah. And I was going to say that there's a couple of horror stories. I don't know if you're interested in HR horror stories.
Of course, I'm interested in horror stories.
Are you? Well, I've got a couple for you then. Well, I worked in Caerphilly for this small agency, maybe 6 or 7 of us. And we didn't know what was happening, but one day we were sold to a company in Cardiff. We didn't know whether it was a takeover or a merger, and it was never really explained to us. It wasn't our place to know these things, I suppose, but that's fine. So we went to this place in Cardiff Bay. Lovely place to work, beautiful part of the world, lots of stuff to do at lunchtime.
Surfing and all sorts of stuff, love it.
Yeah, it's fantastic. But the problem was, one of the managers, owners of the company that we were from came over with us, and he had a completely different style and ethic to the 2 people that ran this business, and there was a big clash in styles. And this guy, I'm going to name him because his name's Darren, same as me, so there we go, easy to remember. He was very sales focused and very demanding, and I remember this one time where he absolutely screamed at this girl in the office, properly shouted her out for something that he thought she had done wrong. So in front of everyone. As it turns out, she hadn't. He'd completely misunderstood, completely got the wrong end of the stick. But this is something I've always been careful of never to do myself now. When he realised he'd done something wrong, he pulled her out into the corridor and apologised to her privately. So he bawled her out in public and apologised to her privately.
That is such a no-no. Such
Yeah.
a no-no. And such cowardice, actually, as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. You know, if you're going to do that in front of everyone, you apologise in front of everyone.
Absolutely.
But best you don't do that in front of everyone, obviously. And probably a good idea, you've got all the facts before you do it anyway, so you don't make yourself look like a right dick.
Absolutely. Because there's obviously, you know, sometimes managers can get carried away in the moment, they can get a bit passionate, they see something's wrong, and they fly off the handle. Absolutely, you're right. Shouldn't have happened in the first place. Should have taken her away to a quiet room and had a word with her, kind of off, you know, separately. But he lost twice the respect that he ever had for then not apologising. Oh, how awful.
Yeah, and it's no surprise that this whole merger thing of the two companies, he didn't last very long within it, and he went his separate way, shall we say. Yeah. Again, I don't know what the situation was, whether they sacked him, whether it was like, this isn't working, and they gave him something, I don't know. But he did not last there, because it just did not fit as a culture.
Yeah. And of course, it's a grievance situation, so she could have very easily have gone to HR and say and lodged a formal, you know, complaint, and that should be taken seriously.
She could have, but there was another incident later on which did go to a HR company, which did go to legal. This was a big one. Right. What happened was, it's a design agency, so we have software where we do designs. And one of the designers that worked with me at the previous agency, they didn't respect him because they didn't think that this agency they bought in had creative people. They gave all the best jobs to their own people, and the ones that came in, they were given the crappy jobs. So he left to set up on his own, and he was really good, and he's doing really well now all these years later. But he asked one of the designers if they could give him a copy of Adobe Photoshop, which isn't really allowed. But he was asking him via email, and one of the designers didn't actually say yes or no. But then one day, the designer that he was asking was off sick, and the boss used his computer, because it was the fastest computer in the business, to do some work. When he logged into the computer, it automatically logged into MSN Messenger, which we used at the time, also logged into his Hotmail, his personal Hotmail. And then this message pops up on the screen. Hi, did you manage to get that Adobe Photoshop for me, or something to that effect? To which point the boss is like, what's this? Goes into his Hotmail and starts going through his personal Hotmail, reading his emails.
Oh, my word.
Which he thought was perfectly fine to do, because it's on a work computer. But you can't look at someone's personal email, even if it's logged in.
Exactly.
That is not allowed. So he went through this email, saw that he'd been asked to provide this software. The boss assumed that he'd done it, and basically suspended him on the spot. Don't come in tomorrow. You're suspended. Brought him in a couple of weeks later, interviewed him. You've done this. I'm not happy with it. Sacked him. The boss comes upstairs. I've got rid of him. He'd provided software to one of our former employees, at which point the other designer stood up and said, no, he didn't. I did. I don't like the way you've done that. I'm quitting. And he walked out the door.
Wow.
Their two best designers, they lost on the same day. The guy that was sacked, who hadn't done anything, then went to a very, very large HR lawyer, Eversheds, who are monsters, got a massive settlement for him and got him to write his own reference. All because the guy didn't know that you're not allowed to go through someone's personal email. You're not allowed to sack somebody without representation with them. There was no evidence. He didn't follow any procedures. He just did what he thought he was best for him. No consultation. Get yourself a HR consultant if you're going to do something like that.
Absolutely. I mean, for a start, number of breaches on so many levels. One, why was he logging in using his profile in the first place? Because we're meant to keep all those details confidential. And And of course, going through those personal numbers, as you've already said, is an absolute no-no.
Yeah.
He should have kind of found out what was going on and done at least some basic investigation work. I mean, that was just horrendous. I suspect that probably there would have been quite a fairly large payout for this guy.
I believe there was.
Yeah.
I believe there was.
For the company.
Yeah.
And hopefully they updated their procedures afterwards as well. You know, from a lessons learned perspective.
I'm not sure they had procedures, to be honest with you. But again, surprise, surprise, that company no longer exists anymore. This is the theme, isn't it? This is the theme.
It is the theme. So how things kind of landed for you? You've been through some interesting examples. Now you're your own boss. How have some of these things kind of landed with you in terms of the workplace you've created?
Well, using a HR consultant is obviously the first thing we do. I mean, often when people set up in business for the first time, it's not something they think of straight away.
No.
But we did it from day one because we knew there's stuff we don't know. So if you're going to be recruiting people, you need to have someone you can go to advice. You need to have someone that can come back to you very quickly. So we did that straight away. We use a different one now to the one that we started with, because the one that we started with is one that most people use when they start up in business for the first time. I genuinely can't remember the name of them, but they are quite expensive and they were quite slow. So they always erred on the side of caution. So if you have got a problem or you've got a question that you need to ask, you really need a response very quickly. And if they're taking 1 to 2 days to get back to you with a response because they're checking stuff through the lawyers or however they're doing it, then that's a bit slow. I know the reason they did that is because they're one of those companies that guarantees that if you ever get taken to a tribunal or get taken to court, then they will represent you and it's all included within the cost. So they have to be doubly sure that the advice they're giving is correct. So I appreciate that. But we needed one that was a bit quicker, essentially. And then there's all the things that you never even consider. Like when you're interviewing somebody, they have rights straight away as soon as they apply. And if you don't necessarily know the types of questions you are legally not allowed to ask in an interview, which if you've not had this consultation, then you won't know. So you can't ask if somebody's a smoker. You can't ask if somebody has a family. You can't ask if somebody is planning to have a family or if somebody is pregnant. You're not allowed to ask any of these questions, which business owners who've not been through this process probably won't know. And they could ask these and get themselves in hot water without even realizing that that's a thing. So we made sure we had all that right before we started.
It's a huge minefield, actually. For new managers, for new people wanting to set up their own business, you're absolutely right. It is very, very difficult to navigate through all of this. And actually, most people, some people manage to do it without that external HR advice. But as they start to grow, that's when sometimes advice can be really helpful as well, because you want to make sure that in the early days there's all that excitement, that there's, we're building a business, we've got our clients that are coming along, we're all sharing one vision. But as you get bigger, sometimes the new people coming on board aren't quite connected with the vision that you've got. They don't necessarily know where you're headed. And so that support from an HR team can actually be, or just one HR representative can be really good in terms of providing all of the policies and procedures to avoid the hot water scenarios we just talked about. But also some of the basic stuff around training and making sure your managers know what they're doing. It's HR is one of those kind of functions that it tends to get, I would say maybe a little bit maligned because it's a cost centre rather than something that's adding value to your bottom line. But it keeps you out of trouble and it keeps you honest, so you can do what you need to do, what you're good at, which is to grow your business.
Yeah, it does keep you out of trouble. I mean, there's just one thing I thought of then as you were speaking, is that most businesses have got no concept of that you have to provide a contract on day one. How many businesses don't do that? Because they're just not aware that's a thing. If your employee starts and they get to their second day and they've not been given a contract, you're in breach of the law.
Absolutely.
Who knew? Who knows this stuff?
Who knew?
Who knew?
until a problem arises, and then you're kind of thinking, oh, well, just let them go. But actually, that's the point at which you're trying to get kind of keep your hands clean, aren't you, and making sure that you're doing right by them as well as by yourself as a business owner. Yeah. It is a huge minefield.
It's like having a tax advisor. There's lots of things you could do on your self-assessment or your tax return that you think, oh, I might get away with that. But it's probably best that you get someone who knows what they're talking about to have a look at it for you.
Absolutely.
It's the same thing. Yeah. And just like with tax, there's fines at the end of it. There's potential jail time at the end of it if you don't do it right.
Absolutely. And of course, one of the big ones here is health and safety, because a lot of organisations, a lot of businesses, are potentially taking risks with their employees on a daily basis. Insurance isn't going to necessarily cut it. It's also, have you made sure that you're actually doing the right things in terms of training and awareness and making sure that you're providing the right equipment. There's a whole host of stuff that we don't necessarily think about when we kind of decide, right, I'm going to go and start my own business. But actually, there's so much more that you need to be thinking about. Not that we're trying to put anybody off.
No.
Entrepreneurship is the best thing ever. However, just a little bit of forethought, and just kind of like making sure that you're getting the right advice will kind of stand you in good stead for when you actually do make that first step.
Yeah, it's about understanding what you don't know. Realize there's stuff out there that you don't know, and you need to get advice from people who do know it.
Yeah, exactly. So, Darren, what's next for you? Engagement.
What's next? Probably more recruitment, I should expect.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
You're doing it right with contracts and managers are trained.
We are. Yeah, I don't even do the interviews anymore.
No, I don't suppose you need to do that anymore.
No, we've had people start here and I've not even known who they are until they come through the door, which is the way I like it. It's best keep me out of it. But yes, the one thing we do that I think we do quite well is benefits package. Because not everybody is motivated by money. Many people are, obviously, but not everybody. So we have things like your birthday is a holiday, and that's not out of your holiday entitlement. We have death in service cover, which nobody wants as a benefit. Nobody sees as a benefit. But if it ever did come to it, then that is one hell of a benefit. And as a company as well, it's actually not that expensive for a business to provide. We've got health insurance, which now covers dental as well, which I only found out recently. I didn't know, but yeah, we've got. So that applies to me as well. We put all of this together because we know it's important that people feel welcome, they feel wanted, they feel like they should be there. Wellness allowance, that's a new one.
That is a new one.
That is a new one. Wellness allowance is, let me get this right, it's £30, I think, a month and it's not taxed, so they can spend it on whatever they want. So it could be a massage, could be go to the gym, could be go to the cinema, whatever it may be, and we don't need to see what they spend it on. It just goes into the pay packet as a wellness allowance. Not many people doing that.
No, that's a fantastic benefit, actually, Darren.
Is that really new, wellness allowance?
Yeah. Not every organisation provides things like that. You'll be really surprised, even the big organisations who could easily afford to do it, don't necessarily do it.
Well, it doesn't really cost you much to do because it's the same price for everyone. So it seems no-brainer to me.
I suppose they cover it under things like an EAP, like an employee assistance program, where you can kind of have 5 or 6 sessions for seeing a counsellor, for example, or a hotline if something is happening. Which actually, considering, we started our conversation around kind of toxic workplaces and bad boss behaviours and all that. Actually, the consequences of some of that behaviour can actually lead people to really kind of suffer at work, and that can be an outlet for them, because finding external sort of counselling can be so difficult. So it does actually, it is very much a benefit. But I really like what you've done here, because you're actually providing something that is a real kind of it's a real positive kind of attribute and entity that you can add to a package. I really like that.
Oh, thank you.
What do your employees think of that?
What did they think? I'm not sure they knew what to spend it on at first. Like, do we have to tell you? Do we have to allocate it each month? It's like, no. You just get on with it yourself. It's fine. If you're buying beer with it, it's okay. Don't tell us. We don't need to know. It's all right.
Yeah, we don't want to be encouraging that.
No, we don't. No.
That could cause problems in its own right.
Yeah, I think the stuff they've liked that we have done, we trialled last year alternate Fridays off, so 4-day weeks. So 1 week you're working a 4-day week, 1 week a 5-day week, 1 week a 4-day week. So we tried that. This year we're trialing alternate early darts on a Friday, so finishing at 3 o'clock.
Right.
So we split into 2 teams.
Yeah.
One half will finish 1 week on a Friday at 3 o'clock. The other half will do it on the following week on a Friday at 3 o'clock. So to make sure there's always someone there to cover.
Yeah.
You see. So we're giving that a go. People didn't really like the 4-day thing.
Did they?
No, because the hours had to be covered.
Right.
I'm trying to think how we did it. Oh, that's right. So 1 week you finished on a Monday, the next week it was a Friday.
Right.
So it was alternating depending on the 2 teams that you were in. But say you finished on the Friday, then the Monday through to Thursday, it was, say, start at 8, finish at, 5:30, whatever it is to work up the hours. So slightly longer 4 days and then a day off. But they didn't like it, which was weird. I thought they would.
Yeah. A 9-day fortnight, that really appeals to... Well, it
Yeah.
appeals to me. I thought it appealed.
I like the idea. I like that. I think I don't know, maybe it was the early starts or the late finish. I'm not sure what it was, but it wasn't as popular as we thought it would be.
That's really interesting feedback, because it would be really useful if you did any kind of, reach out to the team to find out what it was in particular that they didn't like.
Oh, we did, but I've not looked at it. It wasn't me, it was someone else did it, but we did do that.
Okay, yeah. Whereas this kind of finishing at 3 seems to be more kind of...
they like the idea of that. Yeah.
Well, I personally would have liked that extra day. So if other people weren't doing it, I'd have said to you, Darren, can I stick to my 9-day fortnight, please? You'd have said no.
Unfortunately, we can't.
No. So you're in a really good position, you're expanding. It sounds to me that you have learned the lessons from what you've experienced and actually decided as a boss you're going to bring in all of the good things and apply it to your people. I think that's a really lovely thing to be doing. What are your Christmas parties like then?
Oh.
Bouncy castle things like game.
Well, we've got a client that does bouncy castles, actually, so we've not actually brought bouncy castles in yet. No, what we've done for the last few years is we've gone on to these, what are they called? Party World.
Yeah.
And it used to be in Liverpool in the, what's it called? The MEN Arena. Is that right? In Liverpool? Yeah. But they do it in Manchester now at, I don't want to say Manchester Central, because that's just stupid. The GMEX, for us old schoolers, the GMEX in Manchester. Yeah. The one in Liverpool made more sense because it's a lot closer for us. There's like lots of companies together. We have to get 2 tables now because there's so many of us. And they've got like acrobats and fire and bottomless drinks and carnival rides and that kind of stuff. It's really elaborate and a really good night. That's what we're doing now. I think that's what we're going to do again next year. Fantastic. Just wish they'd do it in Liverpool again because it's much more convenient for us.
Yeah. So you get a minibus and have to take everyone along.
We did. Do you know what? We did minibuses last year, not this last Christmas. The Christmas before, we did 2 minibuses. And we did that at Knowsley Safari Park. They did one there. But this last year, we said, make your own way there, and we paid for hotel rooms.
Right. Nice.
Yeah.
It became more of a 24-hour kind of thing. I think that's a great idea.
It did pretty much, yeah, because some of us went to the Christmas markets the following day on the Saturday as well. Then.
Amazing.
Yeah.
So if we were to ask your employees then, what do they think of you?
Oh, don't do that.
As a boss.
Don't do that.
What would they say?
Oh, I've no idea. It depends who you asked. If you asked Alan, he'd probably say, knobhead. But If you ask Ryan, he'd probably say amazing. But he says amazing a lot. So he does say amazing a lot. Everything's amazing. I think she'd be okay. I think she's just been asked to look after my calendar for 3 weeks. So right now, she might not be okay.
No, she doesn't like you at all then.
Not today, no.
No. And what would they think about working at Engage Web?
I think they'd be quite happy about it, because I think they all get pride in doing it, because we try to empower people to make their own decisions, so that they don't feel like school children. They don't feel like they're being told to do something. They can, if they've got a question, they can come up with their own solution, which I think is the important way to do it. Because it works out better for us and it works out better for the clients that way.
Absolutely, because you've got a happy workforce, and they're going to, that happiness is going to come out in the way that they work with the clients and the work that they're producing. So I think it's a no-brainer.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Brilliant. Okay, well, Darren, it's been an absolute pleasure talking with you. I was looking forward to this conversation because I know that you've been in business for a little while, and I know that you've got so many strings to your bow. I know, you had to squeeze me in, so I was really grateful for that.
I've always got time for you, Jivan, you know that.
And it's always great because I know you're a trainer as well, and we work together on the progressive stuff, and it's always good to kind of pick your brains about stuff, and being an entrepreneur myself, I'm trying to get to that next level of development in terms of my business, and it's always good to kind of see how you're doing things and kind of actually using that. I think that's also a really good thing about being a boss, in that if you're able to kind of show leadership, show how you do things, and share that knowledge, I think that is always really that's a really good sign of leaders, actually, in terms of encouraging those around you. And also I like the way your personality, I think that's really nice as well, and you kind of you're very open and transparent.
Thank you.
Have I stroked the ego enough yet?
Well, you could keep going, but no, I think that's probably okay. Yeah.
Any more comedy gigs? Where can we find you?
Well, obviously the podcast, Engaging Marketeer, on Spotify, iTunes, Audible, that kind of thing. There's 2 comedy routines I've done, are both existing as podcasts as well. But no, I'm not doing any more live comedy. No, I'm hanging up the comedy boots for now. Yeah, well, it doesn't pay, and it takes. It's not just going up and doing a routine for 15 minutes. It's countless hundreds of hours planning it and working it out and going through it. That's the difficulty. And then when you're doing it, you can't think of anything else. You can't concentrate on anything else. Because the way I do it, and I don't know what other people that do speeches do that sort of thing do. I don't write it down. I didn't write any of it down. I go through the whole thing in my head over and over and over again until it's word perfect, and I'm editing it in my head. Because if I try and write it down, I'm trying to memorize it, like doing a play or something, which I could never do. I don't know how actors can do that. I'm just seeing the words, and I'd get lost on the page in my head. So I never do that. It was the same with the TEDx that I did. Didn't write a single word of it down, but I knew it word for word. And I could write it down afterwards by just going through and writing it, because I knew exactly what I wanted to do. But it's all edited in my head. It's all memorized in there. Because I just can't read it back and do it that way. It's just not something I can do.
What was your TEDx about?
It was about cyberbullying.
Oh.
Cyberbullying and how to do it. No, how to catch a cyberbully. Because my son was bullied when he was 12. Somebody created a fake Facebook profile of him and started sending abusive messages to other kids in the class. And my ex-wife called me up out of the blue, hadn't heard from her for a few years, and asked me if I knew anything about Facebook. And I did. And could I help find out who had created this account and get it shut down? And I got the identity of the person that did it in under an hour.
Wow.
So the talk explains how I did that.
Such an important topic and so emotive. Do you know, I'd love to talk to you about that again. Actually, maybe that's a podcast number 2 on cyberbullying, because actually that does kind of resonate within the workplace as well.
It does.
Not just for children. Yeah.
And you know, if I hadn't I mentioned this on the TEDx talk, if I hadn't set up my own business, because that was when we'd started Engage Web, so that was about 2012, I wouldn't have been able to do that. If I'd still been working at that company in Manchester, firstly, I wouldn't have been able to take the call. I certainly wouldn't have been able to go, right, let's get one of the developers in. Let's create a program that's going to trap somebody that clicks on a link. Let's do that. Now let's catfish this fake profile. Would not have been able to do it. But because I had my own business, I had the time and I could dedicate it to it. Even though it took me an hour.
But still, it was something that you were able to spend time and actually sort your family out. Sometimes we don't always get that freedom or that luxury from work. You're right. You get, if you don't get that time off, sometimes you've got to act immediately, don't you?
You do.
You do. Well, I'm really happy that you managed to sort that out. How's your son now?
He's great. He's moving in with me shortly.
Is he?
Yes.
Nice. You're looking forward to that?
I am indeed. It's going to be weird because I've not lived with him since he was, 5?
Oh. How
old
is he now?
23.
Oh. It's going to be like having a lodger.
It is. It's going to be a bit weird.
Yeah. We're going to share your space all over again.
Mm.
Do you know, I wish you well. I hope it works out well for you and your son. But yeah, I think it'd be fantastic. One day I think we'll maybe do that. We can do that as a separate topic.
Absolutely. Let's do that.
Yeah. Anyway, Darren, thank you so much for your time. It's been an absolute pleasure. And good luck with Engage. And I think you've got some huge potential with the people that you work with there. And I think if any other listeners take a little bit of what you do in terms of where you are as a boss into their workplaces, I think they could make them happier places as well.
Thank you very much, Jivan. I've loved doing it. Thank you.
Good. Thank you. Oh, Darren, don't go yet.
I'm not going anywhere. I'm cool.
Good. Where is it? It's me. I'd lost it. Right. Okay. So I'm going to end the session. And then